while the world is watching what's going on in Gaza, there is the expectation that any day now, any hour now, that the Israeli Defense Forces could launch their incursion into Gaza City and cross the barrier and actually go into what's expected to be house-to-house fighting. A lot of people have been hearing about that, and we here at Deep Dive continue to talk about all kinds of ramifications on that. What if Hezbollah comes in from the north? What if it expands, into the region? So those are on the operational and the strategic level. But I want to spend a little bit of time so people can understand what would be going on at the tactical level. What's going to happen inside the Gaza Strip and inside this tactical fight here on the ground. Now, we had a little bit of information about what Israel has been planning and what they're preparing and training for, as this in the report shows here.
You actually witnessed Israeli forces training for this ground assault in a mock Gaza City. What was that like to see that up close?
In 5 days flat, they built a mock Gaza City way out in the desert in Negev, and they've been kicking in doors, clearing rooms, and eliminating terrorists as a training exercise within that facility. We got an opportunity to visit it. You've got 19, 20-year-old soldiers. They are raring to go.
Now, during the preparation for my training, when I went to deploy to Iraq the second time, we went through a lot of that exact same training. It's called a stack, and you figure out how to clear rooms and how to work with other people. We've done a lot of that, or I had done that kind of training myself. I never actually conducted it in real life combat. But as we also have mentioned here several times, this fight is going to be very similar to the one in Fallujah that the U.S. fought in 2004. Now, in that fight, we isolated the city for a full 3 months to know nothing could get in, nothing could come out. While we prepared, we did intelligence preparation of the battlefield, and we also actually trained our force. When that fight happened, though, when it actually conducted, take a look at here at what actually happened inside the city.
My role was an infantry platoon commander, leading a platoon in Fallujah, 3rd Platoon, Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. We were the main effort, which was expected to be thrust against the most difficult part of the enemy's position, who was as close to hand-to-hand combat as you're going to get. 100% tight concrete streets, 3-story homes surrounded by brick barrier walls, which make the street even feel more constricted. The squad that I was with, we were finding all kinds of weapons caches and fighting positions, had not yet encountered any enemy. Someone from 2nd Squad, maybe a radio operator, reported troops in contact, and perhaps at that point had reported some wounded in action. Myself and the other Marines in the 1st Squad showed up at this house, the house from hell.
Now, that city was about a quarter of the size of Gaza City, just so you understand that the comparison there in terms of what's expected. You also may have noticed from looking at the buildings, first of all, you saw that the Marines did exactly the kind of clearing with their stacks and whatever that you saw the Israelis doing in preparation and training. So that's what you can expect once the Israeli Defense Forces go in. However, the U.S. fight in Fallujah took about a little bit less than 2 months. So it still took quite a bit of a time. And we had M1 tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles. We had attack helicopters. We had airstrikes, a lot of the things that the Israelis have with them too. But some key differences. We went up against about somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 insurgent fighters. And they had not had a lot of time to prepare as the Hamas side has had here. There are also at least 30,000 Hamas fighters. I think the number will end up being closer to 100,000 by the time it's all over. As many of the men in Palestine, I think, are going to end up fighting with them because of, a lot of their houses have been destroyed. And, there's a lot of anger at the Israelis for how they've been killing so many Palestinians. So I suspect that the IDF mission will now be much, much more difficult because they've gone in with heavy rounds of airstrikes where many houses have been just completely leveled. So that's going to even more complicate the process for the Israeli side. And when you start having that many enemy soldiers and that much wreckage, it's going to be so much more difficult. You saw in those pictures there where the Marines would go into buildings and clear rooms. Well, a lot of these buildings are going to be mostly or completely destroyed, and you're going to have piles of rubble. And it is extremely difficult to be able to go find the enemy fighters where they may be hiding in just compartments of rubble because it's no longer a room that you can even go into clear. And of course, you've heard a lot about the tunnel systems. Now, another sample that was given that the U.S. helped on but didn't fight on the ground was to fight for Mosul. Now, Mosul is a city about the same size as what Gaza City is. And I want to just show you a small portion of a documentary that showed what that fight was like. And Israel can really expect some of this on the coming days.
والثقة موجودة بيناتنا يعني بأي مكان احنا نريد موجودة الثقة بيناتنا وهاي ثلاثتنا. لأنك سيد لأنك استغل لا تستعجل جماعة اسمعنا شوي اصبر اظن شبت في واحد شو ترمي الساعة عليه ما ترمي ما شفنا واحد نكتله احسن من لا يروح نشتم بالتالي بلا الا نكتل يا سيدي كرر على هذا جمال افتح نار يلا روح افتح نار على العمارة.
That's just one tactical episode in a war, in a battle that took between 7 and 9 months, depending on how you want to count it. Another fight that I don't have footage of right now was in Raqqa, where the Syrian Democratic Forces with U.S. air power and intelligence did nearly the same thing. That one took 9 months. So you see, these operations are going to take a long time, and that's with a lot of resources. And again, the similar situation there in Mosul, there was maybe 5,000 ISIS fighters that they were trying to eradicate, not 50,000. So the difficult task for Israel will be so much higher, and you can expect the casualties to be a lot higher too. And I think that's one thing we need to understand is this not only is not going to be fast, it's also going to be very costly. So we should not expect this to last 1 to 2 months, as some of the Israeli military forces or leaders have been saying. I think that's extremely optimistic because the Hamas fighters have shown they will fight to the death. They're not going to surrender. They're not going to give up. I think they already know that most of them are not going to survive this, and they're willing to fight anyway. And that's one of the most difficult enemies to face because they don't give up, and they'll keep on fighting, and they'll require you to go every single inch of that territory to eradicate them out or wipe the city off the face of the map and literally drop every building. And of course, that's going to cause more problems for the Israelis because if they start having high casualties and this going is very slow, there's going to be great political pressure on Netanyahu as well as his government. There's going to be pressure from the Israeli population that they don't want their sons continuing to die in large numbers. And as the casualty count for the Palestinian people go up, that's going to put pressure from the outside on Israel to stop this. So this operation is not going to be clean. It's not going to be easy, and it is very fraught with other possibilities that could cause the war to expand or that could draw the United States in, as we talked about in the previous episode here. I just want to make sure that you're aware that this is not something that's going to be quick. It's not easy. It is going to be very bloody, and the outcome is far from certain. That's for your deep dive for today. Thanks to like and subscribe. And if you know anybody else who wants to know the real score about what's happening and what to really expect, share this with them. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you next time on Deep Dive.